we go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
I was fortunate enough to begin my career at a time when the independent field was growing, so it was partially being in the right place at the right time. And the other thing I would say is I really worked. I worked very, very hard. People think of directing a film as a glamorous thing, and to a certain extent it is, but it is also very hard work. Maybe my engineering background, but I determined right from the beginning that I had to have scripts that I wrote that fit the budget. There's no point in writing a scene where 10,000 Indians charge over the hill if you've only got a $50,000 budget. So I wrote the scripts to fit the budget. So I did not have a problem on the set shooting that. That was one of the key things that I just sort of instinctively did.
Roger Corman, the director of the original 1960s Little Shop of Horrors, has died. Starting in 1955, Corman churned out hundreds of low-budget horror films, among them Bucket of Blood and Bloody Mama. He's known for spotting talent and gave many of Hollywood's most famous actors and filmmakers their start, including Francis Ford Coppola, James Cameron, and Martin Scorsese. In 2009, Corman was given an honorary Academy Award. Little Shop of Horrors became a cult classic and was remade in 1986. It also became a hit musical. Corman's family said he died Thursday at his home in Santa Monica. He was 98 years old.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your Mission Commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we're blessed to have our friend and co-podcaster extraordinaire, Lord Blood-Rah. We're going to be talking about Roger Corman. Unfortunately, recently passed, but the man lived to be 98 and has like a billion films. We're not going to talk about all of them today, but we're going to get into a good bunch. Your mission commander was personally impressed with all the different actors, directors, and just people involved in his films. Straight away, let's kick it over to Lord Blood-Rah. Welcome again, Lord Blood-Rah, to the show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here on Planet 8. And Roger Corman, I mean, when I heard you were doing an episode on Roger Corman, I thought, oh, well, that could easily be a 4-hour episode.
Yeah.
And
it just might.
And it just might. And you would just be scratching the surface. The man, it's not an understatement to say that the man built modern Hollywood. You look at the people that he discovered: Scorsese, Ron Howard. We were talking about that earlier. Joe Dante. The list goes on. And actors, Jack Nicholson. It's incredible how many people he gave a chance to. Now, of course, he has also been criticized by some people, saying that he was just preying on young, hungry talent, which in a sense is true, but he gave them the chance to shine and to go on to incredible careers. Without Roger Corman doing that, we might not know their names today.
Yeah.
And when you talk about Roger Corman, his films specifically, it's like which genre of films are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about his 50s science fiction films going into the Edgar Allan Poe cycle, which to me, Mask of the Red Death is just a brilliant almost not a horror film. To me, that's an art film. That is an incredible. To me, it's Roger Corman's directing at the height of his ability into the exploitation films of the early 70s, the films he did in the Philippines, the women in prison films, on into producing Death Race 2000 and going into Sharktopus and that entire silly genre of hybrid monsters.
But he also he did comedies, he did westerns, he did motorcycle films.
Everything.
The Trip.
Everything.
Yeah, it's like crazy.
There's a list of genres. There was westerns. The film was The Gunslinger. Horror, The Mask of the Red Death. War, Von Richthofen and Brown. Science fiction, X, The Man with the X-ray Eyes.
Yes.
Fantasy, The Saga of the Viking Women and Their Voyage to the Waters of the Great Sea.
His longest title.
Gangster, The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Musical, Rock All Night. Biker, The Wild Angels. Psychedelic, The Trip. Drama, The Intruder. And comedy, The Little Shop of Horrors. I mean,
yes,
you know, and those are just one film within that genre. But he did hundreds, maybe thousands of different films. And you got to give the man credit, because whether you like the films or not, he stayed with the times. He kept, the Sharktopus. I mean, it's schlocky, but it's talked about and it's watched.
Dino Shark.
Right?
He's a shark. He's really not a shark. He's but he's not really a dinosaur. It's like,
getting back to that idea of giving people their start, he also was a very efficient guy, right? He only had so much money and so much time to do things. And so he got about his business. You read interviews with different people he worked with, whether it was, the actors or special effects people or whoever, the up and coming directors. And he would tell them, look, I want you to do, X number of scenes a day, and you need to be able to do this, and you need to be able to figure this out. And if you can do all this stuff, you will see very little of me. But if I find you're not able to do this, then you will see a lot of me. And so he would give them, a certain amount of trust and autonomy if they were able to live up to his standards. And if not, he would be there. But it sounded like for a lot of them, they really felt that he, had their back, or he would trust them and he would give them guidance. And, they learned how to be proficient filmmakers and actors and so forth, because he had that system where he was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to work hard and we're going to make a movie in 10 days. And so
it was like a movie factory.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why Roger Corman and Sam Arkoff was like a match made in heaven between the two of them, because they both have the same philosophy. And, Arkoff wasn't a director, so he basically could sick Corman on a film and say, okay, and he'll know it's done in 3-4 days, whatever. So
a great example of that is they were filming The Raven with Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, and Peter Lorre, and finished it ahead of schedule, still had time with Boris Karloff's contract. So he started filming random scenes, just random stuff. He told the writer, I forgot who the writer was. I don't think it was Charles Griffith. I'm not sure who wrote The Terror, but he said, we've got Karloff, we've got this set, write something real quick and we'll film Karloff until his contract runs out. And they did. And while they were filming his scenes, in another section of the set, they were tearing it down. So he was filming like all this last minute stuff, then filmed back scenes, which is kind of funny if you've ever seen the film is The Terror, that was made on the dregs of The Raven. And it's a really nonsensical film. But it makes sense that it is, because it was pieced together from random ideas. Okay, Mr. Karloff, come down the stairs. Now go up the stairs. Now walk down this hall. Now you're frightened. Now you're this. Now you're that, And he managed to piece together a movie And, like the title of his book says, he didn't lose money on it. It was released and he made money. So you got to love that spirit. Well, the man studied engineering at Stanford and then got an engineering job, realized he hated it, and went into filmmaking, essentially. But he took that sense of efficiency of what it takes to make things work and applied it to film with brilliant results.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think I read that he worked at that engineering job for 4 days and just said, "This is not going to work for me."
Yeah.
If only I had done that early in my career. Oh.
And his father was an engineer too, so I imagine he had a very practical, guy in his house and had that kind of upbringing.
But when he decided he was out of that engineering job, he ended up going to Hollywood and basically got a job reading scripts, reading spec scripts. And he would sit there, read a script, make some notes, and then put together a short synopsis to present to the studio, and then they would decide if they want to pursue it or not. And it got to the point where it was one film, it was a Western, I believe, where he made so many notes and so many changes to the script that all made it to the movie. But it was the director that got the credit and not Corman. And that's when he said, well, I'm gonna start directing then. I want credit for that. So it's interesting what leads people to the next step in their careers.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure
at some point in there, he went to Oxford and studied English literature too.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure I think it might have been just before that. I think he went overseas and then came back. So he also kind of worked on his writing skills and must have been interested in doing that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's interesting, that career path, Bob.
And he could have been, he made a lot of schlock, but it wasn't just that. Like I said before, Mask of the Red Death is a beautiful, beautiful film, as are all the we call them the Edgar Allan Poe cycle. But one of those films, The Haunted Palace, only has an Edgar Allan Poe title taken from a poem. It's actually an H.P. Lovecraft film because he was getting tired of doing Edgar Allan Poe stories. So, and it's one of the best H.P. Lovecraft films. And I think it might be the first film based on H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not sure, but it probably is. I know there were radio dramas done before that based on Lovecraft stories, but it might be the first film based on Lovecraft, and it's a brilliant film. Again, Vincent Price, Lon Chaney Jr. is in it. Great film. And back to comedies, I still think that the original Little Shop of Horrors is far better than the remake, the musical film. Far better. I think it's funnier. I think it's sharper. I think there's a subversive quality to the comedy in it. It's just I've hosted the film live a few times and it still gets laughs. Still gets a lot of laughs. It's just
Debbie and I watched that earlier in the week, and we also watched Not of This Earth. And it's funny because you look at some of these movies and people think, oh, just crappy B movies or whatever. But no, if you actually watch the movies, the direction is actually really good.
Yes.
And the camera angles and the shots he gets and the creative ways that they transition between scenes and things. It's it's a low budget. It may have some cheap props, but it's actually...
I've never seen Not of This Earth, and that was one of the movies I watched. And it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the ending. It's like...
I was watching it and thinking, oh, the direction of this is really good. And it's a sci-fi film, but the props and things were very minimal.
Yeah.
Which helped until you get that big umbrella alien at the end that engulfs people's heads and things. But
Which to me was kind of reminiscent of Alien, the face huggers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, did someone watch that film and think, oh, we could do, let's plus that.
Well, it engulfs that one guy's head, and then he falls forward onto the table, and then you see all this blood gushing out.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually cool because you don't have to actually watch his throat get slit or whatever.
Right.
It's just implied that, oh man, something's going on under that umbrella thing.
Right.
Oh, I agree. And like I said, the ending with the replacement guy coming with his glasses, hat, and case. I was like, oh, this is such a good ending.
Chilling film.
Yeah, I really,
And the pacing and all, and it's really, it starts off with two teenagers in a car. Of course, teenagers are like 30 years older, but
always.
That was the whole point with Roger Corman and Sam Arkoff, was that up until that point, teenagers in films were like Andy Hardy and gee gosh, Willikers and things. And so that they wanted to show the subversive side of teenagers, or teenagers as they really were. And so, yeah, and that led to all the biker films and everything else. But even like, films that involved like teenagers from space or whatever, it's like, yeah, they're not your typical movie teenagers at that point. They're not someone Walt Disney's going to hire and put in Son of Flubber or something. It's like,
you leave Kurt Russell alone.
Hey. He did subvert Annette Funicello, though.
Not of this earth. It made me, the guy going around made me think of those men in suits in Fringe, the TV show Fringe. They were always there at key points, and I'm like, it's maybe it was an homage, maybe it was just thinking the same idea. But Corman had an influence. One of my favorite films, Targets, Peter Bogdanovich. And Lord Blood-Rah, you'd mentioned Terror and Karloff shooting these, and they used parts of those scenes in the film.
Yeah.
I think it was genius. I mean, maybe it was a little, cheap and frugal on Corman's side as well, but I think it was genius,
Right.
Well, even
Peter Bogdanovich's first film.
It was Bogdanovich's first film. You're right.
Yeah.
But even back then, even with like Irwin Allen, who would use, even on TV, using clips over and over, nobody had home video or any way of watching these. You couldn't binge something. So basically, if you reused a clip from something, it could have been a movie from 2 years ago and no one had seen it for 2 years. So no one remembers that clip.
Right.
Or, TV shows, same thing. It's like, that was last season. Maybe they saw it in a rerun, but they probably haven't seen it for a couple months and they're not going to remember, oh, that was from this episode. So
if you watch Little Shop of Horrors, Bucket of Blood, and I believe it's Creature from the Haunted Sea that were done very close together, it's the exact same soundtrack music. And in a very kind of un-Corman-like move, the guy who composed that music sold it to Corman 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's the same music. It is wonderful. And well, speaking of Bucket of Blood, one of my favorite all-time films, when I started the series, Nerve Wracking Theater, I was my first film that I ever hosted because I loved that film so much. Love that film. And again, Dick Miller, another, stalwart,
Right.
appeared in Little Shop of Horrors and then in this film. Well, actually, no. Bucket of Blood was first. And Dick Miller actually turned down starring in Little Shop of Horrors because he thought, the roles are too similar. I'm not going to do that. So Jonathan Hayes took it, who does a brilliant comedic job.
did you ever see Dick Miller when he was at Monster Palooza?
No, I never met the man.
He had a booth there. And of course, Dick Miller, people see him in films and go, oh, it's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he had t-shirts that said, that guy, Dick Miller.
Nice. Nice.
He was
Nice.
selling those.
The man had to have been in 80% of the films ever produced.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, you're watching these movies and it's like, oh, it's that guy.
There you go, Dick Miller again. Yeah.
And you see a lot of actors kind of recurring in the different Corman films. And I didn't realize, I saw an interview with Jack Nicholson. I didn't realize that basically he claims Corman kind of kept him alive and kept his career going for like 10 years before he broke off and went on his own.
Wow.
I was like 10 years he was putting him in movies. And
yeah, I mean, you see,
it was Jack Nicholson and Bob Rafelson that wrote The Monkey's Head. Broke them out of their whole stereotype thing. And so, yeah, it was.
And it's funny, you see Jack Nicholson in like, well, his little cameo, Little Shop of Horrors, but before that, Crybaby Killer, and even up to The Raven, and you think, this guy's not that great an actor. I mean, he really grew.
Guy.
Yeah, he really grew during those Roger Corman years into a great actor.
The University of Roger.
The University of Roger. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, honestly.
I was also reading John Landis, who really wasn't discovered or anything by Roger Corman.
Yeah.
But John Landis did one of his first movies, like 21 or something. He did Schlock. And I read a whole thing where he was talking about going and meeting with Roger Corman and pitching Schlock to him, showing him the script and everything else. And Roger really liked the script, but there needs to be a little more in this. And he went on to describe 5 or 6 scenes that John Landis could put in the film that involved women's breasts. And John was like, I don't know if that really fits. He goes, oh, no, here's, whoa.
Oh,
man. Down.
Danger.
Anyway, Roger went on to explain, oh no, here's how we can put these breasts in this film and all this. And, Roger definitely had his keys, his formulas on how to make successful movies, whether it was blowing up cars or showing women's breasts or whatever. And anyway, he ended up passing on Schlock, but
he knew what sold. He knew what sold. Joe Dante started as a trailer editor for Roger Corman, and somehow they got this shot. I don't know if it was a stock footage thing, whatever, of a helicopter blowing up. And Joe Dante would insert that into the trailers for films where it didn't happen. It was never in the film. Helicopter never blew up in the movie, but he knew, and Roger knew, it's exciting, and a helicopter blowing up. That same shot is in so many trailers for late 60s, early 70s Roger Corman films.
I've said this before. Karen and I will talk about a film, and we'll say, well, there was too much kung fu and dynamite, which there was no kung fu and dynamite in the film, but it just, there was just too much of this that didn't really tie into whatever. So,
For Roger, there's usually not enough kung fu and dynamite.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Another, along a similar vein, a story that I heard from John Landis. He and I were talking. No, I saw a video of John Landis talking about Death Race 2000. And they were talking a little bit about Sylvester Stallone, his role. He's Machine Gun Joe Viterbo in that film. And there's a scene in the movie which seems really out of place, where after all the racers have gotten to, I think it's St. Louis, they're all getting massaged, and the women are naked. And Stallone did not want to be naked and getting a massage. He was balking at it. And Corman was like, look, I know what I need to have in my movies, and we need to have this scene with all of you naked. You can have a towel over your ass. And he's like, okay. So then he agreed to do the scene. But yeah, there is this ridiculous scene where they're all getting massaged and the reporters are there talking to them. And yeah, it's like, it makes no sense, but you get, TNA. So,
yeah,
and it probably helps keep people in seats. And
It was Stallone's first and only nude scene. So,
oh no.
oh no, that's right. No. He started doing primarily nude scenes.
Yes. So maybe he thought he was, going into his serious acting career, and he didn't want to do any more nude scenes. But yeah, he definitely had his formula with, explosions, and also in Death Race 2000, he had Dante and some other folks go back and they actually filmed more scenes with like blood bags exploding under tires and things like that, because he felt there wasn't enough of that in the movie. So you had to have your TNA, you had to have your violence.
What an amazing film. There was a message and there was plenty of gore to back it up. So.
And, this is just the man's range. He could do this kind of thing, put TNA and more blood, more explosions into a film, then do these beautifully literate Edgar Allan Poe films, and then bring over European art films and distribute them to drive-ins for the first time. I think, I'll never remember the name of it, but it was a Swedish, was
Ingmar Bergman?
Ingmar Bergman, yes.
Isn't that crazy? He was really responsible for bringing a lot of foreign.
The Seventh Seal. I think it's the Seventh Seal that he brought over and distributed to drive-ins. Nobody in the United States wanted to touch it. He brought it over. And I believe Fitzcarraldo later he distributed it in the United States. So he was both. He was this glorious schlockmeister who knew what he needed to do to sell a film, but then he also had this wonderful intelligence to him and this sense of taste in an odd way. He had this great artistic sensibility that can also make Sharktopus.
Well, I mean, even like when he was running New World, they brought over Godzilla in 1985 and decided, well, let's get Raymond Burr to reprise his role from the original Godzilla King of the Monsters, and we'll edit him in to Godzilla 1985. And that did pretty well on the theater drive-in circuit. And even at the time, it's like New World started getting into VHS and home video and that kind of thing. And they started kind of buying up. I think they had like Godzilla versus Gigan and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and a few other Godzilla films that they put under their VHS label. But and so he was doing that.
You got to give him credit too. I mean, he's an artist, but he's a businessman. There's this show on Paramount Plus about the making of The Godfather, and God, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, it shows Francis Ford Coppola saying, the budget be damned. I need more time. I need to do this. Whereas someone like Corman, who's directing and is the business person, it's like wearing both hats. When I was telling my father-in-law I'm going to be recording about Roger Corman, he's like, oh, is that the guy that did Planet Nine? I'm like, no, that's a different one.
But again, Coppola, another director, started with Corman. His first directing credit was Dementia 13.
One of my favorite films, and I've seen it at Lord Blood-Rah's nerve-wracking theater too. So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And another film that was made at the tail end of a previous film. I believe it was The Young Racers that he had William Campbell and the entire cast of Dementia 13 in. He had a couple of days off. There was an Irish castle nearby. Hey, gang, let's make a movie. They did Dementia 13. It's just astounding. That can't happen today.
No.
That kind of thing literally cannot happen today. But in his heyday, that was the way he became the legend that he is.
And
you can't do the unplanned thing. But I mean, didn't they shoot like Back to the Future 2 and 3 together?
But that was planned.
That was planned.
They had scripts for that. I mean, he didn't have a script for Dementia 13 when he said, okay, we're going to make a movie. Somebody write a script.
What he did is he basically took, they finished The Wrath of Khan, and he says, okay, you guys come here. We're now going to do a gothic horror film around a castle, and takes them over there for 3 to 5 days. And it's like,
Right.
oh, now we have a separate film with these
Right.
actors that were in this film.
Right, you still got 3 days on your contract.
Didn't he also, for some of those Poe movies, or maybe it was just one of those Poe movies, didn't he go use the set from some big budget film that had just finished shooting, and he just went over and started filming on their set after they finished?
I don't doubt it.
I forget which
Yeah,
one.
I was going to say, I don't doubt it. I don't know for a fact, but it sounds like something he would do.
Had to be.
Well, that was like Fast and the Furious. He'd go to car lots and just like borrow cars for a test drive. Like go to like a dozen car lots, in a day, borrow these cars and then take them out, do the filming and take them back.
And there's a story, I don't know what movie studio it was, but there was a fire on the back lot, and he happened to be there, and he sent a film crew over to film the fire, because it's like, we'll use this sometime, we'll use this somewhere. It's added production value. And I think he used some of those scenes in Fall of the House of Usher with the flaming wall falling. I think that's part of it, but I'm not quite sure. But I know that there's that story that he would just, okay, film that. We can use it. We'll use it somewhere. I don't know where, but we'll use it somewhere.
The guy is just so smart. And my wife Jasmine's going to be amazed that he was the creator of Fast and Furious. Not the franchise that came later, but at least the title of the film.
Yeah, and he made money. He managed to make money on it.
Yeah.
Managed to make money on the title of the film.
Yeah.
Well, that was the whole, his early days working with AIP and that was the AIP method. It's like they'd come up with a title. Jim Nicholson was like, great at coming up with titles. They'd have somebody just paint a movie poster. And then they'd go and figure out how to make the movie. So it was
a werewolf. No, I was a teenage werewolf.
But that's the whole thing. It was kind of backwards to what Hollywood generally does, where they make a movie and then they come up with the advertising. Maybe they change the title 3-4 times. But they would just. So Corman did learn a lot in his early days with AIP, because hey, they were cheap too. So
well, they knew their audience.
How do we get them big bang?
They're like, hey, we've got this audience. Well, what will they like? And that's what we'll make, and we'll figure it out as we go along, rather than like, well, we're going to option this book, or we're going to do this thing, and then we'll make a movie. It's like, no, we got kids. They like, sex and rock and roll and explosions and fighting and
Kung
Fu and dynamite.
Yeah. And he was able to watch social trends and make films according, like the biker films of the late 60s that went into the drug films that he made, The Trip, and a couple of other films in that genre. And then going into, again, the exploitation films of the 70s. He always had his finger on the pulse, and he knew what was gonna sell. He released Carnosaur a few months before Jurassic Park came out.
Yeah.
Just like I think 3 months before Jurassic Park came out. And the funny thing is, Diane Ladd starred in Carnosaur, and her daughter was in Jurassic Park. Laura Dern.
Oh, man.
In Jurassic Park.
That's crazy.
I know. So he had this sense of where the public was going. He knew what was going on. As a matter of fact, he said when he saw Star Wars, the premiere of Star Wars, he said, it's over. My kind of filmmaking can't happen again, because what Hollywood's done now is taken a B movie plot and scenario and elevated it to the A movie. So now it's going to take a lot more. Audiences are going to expect a lot more, at least visually, from science fiction, from these kind of films. And he realized, well, okay, where do I go now?
But he did make Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yes, cashing in on the Star Wars thing. Yeah, right. He he distributed Star Crash in the United States too. So man, he could hear a dollar drop in the snow, man. Amazing.
One of my fondest memories of watching a Roger Corman film in a hotel room. Well, that sounds kind of weird.
When you say it that way, Larry, it sounds like we need to do Planet 8 After Dark.
Yeah, it was his Fantastic Four film.
Yes.
If you listeners, if you haven't seen Roger Corman's Fantastic Four film, seek it out.
Yeah.
It is aged very well.
Compared to the other Fantastic Four films.
Compared to the other Fantastic Four films, yes.
At least his thing wears pants, okay? I'm just going to say.
If only he had the budget and the support. At that time, Marvel was becoming a thing. And so, he still filmed the movie. There's a wonderful documentary on Amazon, if you have Amazon Prime. And I can't think of the name of the documentary. Doomed. Thank you, Lord Blood-Rah. And it is just, it's such a wonderful thing to watch that after watching the film. It explains so much. Yeah. And it's kind of sad because the film that we could have got would have been epic. But hey, Corman, he did his best with what he had. And that comes through over and over again.
Yeah.
It's so hard to nail down a favorite film, but do you guys have a favorite Corman film?
Which genre?
I was gonna say, you could pick the genre. It's so hard to nail just one down. You can put out a couple if you like.
Bucket of Blood, Mask of the Red Death. Now, are we talking just that he directed or that he produced?
Either or. I know it opens it up now to like.
I know. Bucket of Blood, Mask of the Red Death, Death Race 2000, which is a brilliant satirical film.
It still holds up today, and I like that better than the more modern remakes of that.
And, speaking of that, I don't think Charles B. Griffith, the screenwriter, gets enough credit when we talk about Roger Corman films, because he wrote Little Shop of Horrors and Bucket of Blood.
You're right.
I know he wrote Death Race 2000. Really a great screenwriter with that sharp, satirical, subversive sense that I really love. I don't know. I'll throw those three out there.
What about you, Bob Walker?
No, I mean, I'd have to say definitely Little Shop of Horrors. I always had a place in my heart for Conquer the World.
Yeah.
Beverly Garland kick butt. I would throw in like Pit and the Pendulum.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I just vividly remember the whole pendulum scene from when I was a kid and saw it the first time. That was probably a big rubber blade, but when that takes that first slice out of his shirt with that, just that, line of blood there, I was like, holy, I was just waiting for the whole body to get chopped in half at that point.
And the sound of that thing.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds you of an old 1966 Batman episode too. Like you could picture Robin under the strapped to the table with the blade coming down.
That's funny.
I was thinking of the Lirpa when in a mock time.
Yes.
Kirk kind of goes, what? I'm waiting?
That's probably where they got the idea. It's like, Pit the Pendulum. Yeah, we got to get Kirk to just get his shirt sliced.
Yeah.
Show a little Kirk chest.
Right.
How about you, Karen?
I'm going to admit that I haven't seen. Well, I may have seen one or two of the Poe films when I was a kid. When I was really young, that stuff really creeped me out, especially movies that showed blood. When I was really little, I'd just turn around and run out the door. So I need to go back and I need to watch those films again. But I'd say otherwise, like It Conquered the World. I know they used to show that all the time, so that's on the list. Targets, because we watched that again and it's like, man, this is a really good movie. I mean, this is like a modern, I don't know, serial killer, or it was just such a great film. And then I do really, really like Death Race 2000. And I think when I was a kid, obviously a lot of the satirical elements were lost on me. As I got older, I understood it more. But then watching it again, it was like so much of this is still very applicable to today. The love of violence, sort of the mass, I hate to say it, but like the stupidity of you see in a lot of folks, and just the unquestioning, like the president is depicted as sort of this cult-like figure, and I won't go into any other commentary, but yeah, it's just hilarious.
Celebrity worship. Yeah.
How often to this day, when you're driving around in a car with someone, do you see someone like walking down the sidewalk and you just point them out? That's 500 points.
Right. Well, and I love the scene where the hospital staff puts all of the old folks in the wheelchairs out there on the road.
Line them up.
Frankenstein plows down the staff. Right? It was just like, he's like, every year they do this, and you can tell he's just kind of cheesed off, and he plows up down the staff instead, and they're all like, why do you think he did that? And it's like,
right. And the fan club that sacrifices a girl to him for the love of Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's just really, it's really crazy. Yeah.
Brilliant film.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you all. I'd add all that to my list. At the top of my list is X, the man with the X-ray eye.
That's
another, yes.
Ray Milland.
Freaked me out. The ending is so disturbing.
It's a pretty heavy. I mean,
and it's still disturbing. I watched it. It's still disturbing today.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the hallmarks of, I think, true classics, where generation to generation it still has an impact. Yeah, you know, and the beautiful thing about Roger Corman films, there's a ton of them out there I know that I haven't seen. And just going through and, you know, trying to see what can I stream, what do I have in physical media. But I'll tell you, even after the podcast, I'm going to be watching Corman films just to, you know, edify myself in different genres and quality filmmaking.
If you like horror and science fiction and exploitation films, you almost can't avoid Roger Corman films.
You know, Ray Milland dancing with naked people was hilarious to me. You know, I'm a big fan of Don Rickles' sense of gruff comedy, and he's in that film. You know,
dramatic part.
Yeah, he was not a nice guy. He wasn't playing his like shtick. Anyway, yeah. So,
and if you remade that film today, it would all be CGI, looking through people's, you know, muscles and flesh and buildings, things like that. The way Roger Corman did it was have this kind of psychedelic rainbow effect, and obviously plastic skeletons and that kind of thing when he needed to. But he drove by construction sites where just the girders of a building were up and filmed those as though he were looking through buildings. And just like the brilliance of that cheap special effect gets the message across, works, and still works to this day.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
True, true.
I have to add that to one of my favorites too. He's done so many, I sometimes forget that some of these are Roger Corman films. Yes, Extraordinaire, the Extraordinaire.
Exactly. That's why Lord Blood-Rah, I'm telling you, I'm going to be watching this intermittently with all the other Planet 8 homework that's going to be going on. Any last minute thoughts or comments, films, or anything related to, and I know we're going to get comments, oh, you didn't talk about this, you didn't, say anything about that actor or that director, or
There's always that stuff. I remember like an hour after the podcast, and I was like,
of course there is.
I wanted to mention this thing and I forgot.
You know what? I already told Jeff this, but we had Jeff Winkle, a friend of ours, on. He does all kinds of model work and effects.
Great guy.
Oh yeah, Jeff is fantastic. He worked on a Walter Koenig film with
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell. Yeah, was it Moontrap?
I think so.
I think it was Moontrap. And after we're done recording, he just he's so humble. He's like, "Oh yeah, I did this film," and we're like, "We could have talked." Anyway, so we're good. All right, let's get into
what else can the silver age of Hollywood died when he passed away, and never could.
Old. I mean, he lived a life and acted, directed, produced. There'll never be another one like him.
No, never, because the way Hollywood is structured now, it wouldn't be permitted. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. Even in these days of streaming, there is a bit more freedom, and you can get lower budget things done and streaming, but still, you don't. When a film was released to the theaters, everybody knew about it. You either went and saw it or you didn't. In streaming, I'll hear of a movie or a TV series that was released 5-6 years ago, or TV series that's in its 9th season, and think, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of it before.
Yeah.
Where is it streaming? So with his level of impact in the industry, his artistic impact, and the number of careers he launched, there can never be another Roger Corman.
No, and you make an excellent point with the streaming services. There's just so much content, good and bad, out there. But I remember, a lot of the stuff we'd see at the drive-in theater, we'd go to a matinee, and when the video stores came out, there was Roger Corman films all over the local video store, videotapes. And it's there's just something to be able to take a physical, and look at the picture and, then click and point. But anyway, it was a delight to have you on the show today and talk about someone as iconic as Roger Corman.
Thank you.
We're going to get into the censor suite portion. This episode, Lord Blood-Rah, is going to come out June 8th.
Okay.
Bob, am I correct in that?
Yep.
So, Lord Blood-Rah, what can you share with our viewers and listeners coming out either on the 8th or thereafter? Your programs, your web, social media accounts, and so forth?
Well, as always, Lord Blood-Rah's Nerve-Wracking Theater is on the Nostalgia Network Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and repeat showing at 2 a.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific, showing the best, worst, and wildest horror and science fiction films ever made. My podcast, Lord Blood-Rah's Nerve-Wracking Auditorium, I present the best of old-time radio horror and science fiction. And now, on YouTube, the episodes are fully animated. There's There's animation added to it by the Digital Arts and Animation Department of Silicon Valley University, under the direction of Peter Overstreet.
Nice.
It's really fun. It gives not only, these old radio episodes are excellent and some of the most chilling horror media that you're going to find because it's all happening in your head. It's all theater of the imagination. But now there's a visual interest in the YouTube version that you can watch. That's really fun. Check out Captain Paxar's Star Cadet Hour, also on YouTube. It's the kind of show that people our age used to run home from school to see, featuring episodes of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, Captain Zero, Commando Cody, Sky Marshal of the Universe, various things like that. All of that's on my YouTube channel, YouTube/Lord Blood-Rah. Let's see what else. As far as appearances go, on the 22nd and 23rd, I'll be at Sinister Creature Con in Sacramento at the Scottish Rites Temple, Scottish Rites Center, Scottish Rites thing. Look it up. Sinister Creatures Con. You can get tickets on my website, lordbloodrah.com. And in July, I will be in Peoria at the QuadCon comic book convention at the Peoria Civic Center. And that night at the VIP Morton Theater in Morton, that's about 20 minutes outside of Peoria, I'm doing a film called 3D Dementia. And it's a live film event where I'll be presenting 2 films never before seen in 3D. The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre, starring Martin Landau, great TV horror film that was supposed to launch into a series, never did, but a great film. And the William Castle, Vincent Price classic, House on Haunted Hill, both in 3D. So check that out. That'll be July 13th at the VIP Morton Theater. Tickets at lordbloodrah.com. The convention that Saturday and that Sunday. Again, check out the series. And for all general information on what I'm doing, lordbloodrah.com for access to all of that. And thank you for letting me ramble on about my stuff.
That's awesome. We're happy to have you on. We let's share that information. So hopefully you get some folks with some Planet 8 t-shirts out there in the audience.
Yes, I'll be looking for them. Yes.
Thank you. Bob had a great story about bumping into someone with a t-shirt. Bob, you want to share it, or would you like to?
Well, I mean, it's wasn't so much a t-shirt, but yeah, I guess I'll go next. As part of, if you notice, I'm wearing a San Francisco Giants jersey. If you're watching on YouTube, this is not just a San Francisco Giants jersey, but it's the Cherry Blossom jersey that we got at Cherry Blossom Japanese Heritage Night at the Giants game. So on one sleeve it says Japanese Heritage Night, but on the other sleeve it says Godzilla. Because if you had a special ticket that wasn't cheap, Toho International would put on a Godzilla night. And we were able to go there. We got the jerseys. We also got a exclusive San Francisco Giants Godzilla bobblehead.
Now, for those of you watching on YouTube, you have the bobblehead actually shown today. So if you're not watching on YouTube, go jump on YouTube and you can see all this cool stuff.
It's basically Oracle Park, but it has 2 bobbleheads in the middle of it, one being Godzilla, and then the other one being Lucille, who's their mascot. So there's we got that. And then the amazing thing was that we were basically behind the stadium doing all this Godzilla stuff. And then we had to walk along the warning track of the outfield to get to our seats. And as I'm walking down the warning track, they had an actual Godzilla suit there. They had a guy dressed up as Mechagodzilla. I heard a roar and I looked up and they were showing the Godzilla -1 trailer on the scoreboard.
Ooh.
And then they have, between the upper and lower decks, there's a strip of like an LED strip. And it had celebrate the 70th anniversary of Godzilla and a little picture of Godzilla, and then it said Godzilla.com. And it's like, holy crap, well, I am engulfed in Godzilla and the Giants game. That was like my two worlds colliding.
It's nice.
And it was very, very cool event. But we're going to do, so the story.
Yeah.
We are doing a really cool event in September, Godzilla Fest convention at Japantown. So I was handing out flyers to all the people in line for the Godzilla event. And I went up to this one guy and I'm like, hey, I got a flyer for Godzilla Fest we're doing over at Japantown in September. And he goes, I know all about that. I'm like, really? How? Planet 8.
Yeah.
It is more than our relatives watching. So yes. So Godzilla Fest, basically, we've got a big meeting this week where we'll hopefully nail stuff down. You can go to GodzillaFest.com and see what we have up so far. And it's an ever-evolving show. We also have a show in our regular yearly Godzilla Fest Film Festival at the Balboa Theater in July. That'll be July 19th through the 21st. And there's information on that as well on GodzillaFest.com. It took us 20 years to get GodzillaFest.com, but we were able to get it this year. So
Yay.
Nice.
check it out. Check it out.
Awesome. Wacky?
Well, I don't have anything that exciting.
It's all exciting, buddy.
Well, you know, life goes on. Unless you have a nuclear war. So I finished, I just finished reading a book called Nuclear War, a Scenario, which, let me tell you, it was a very sobering book. So after I finished that, I decided to read something a little more lighthearted, which was this collection of X-Men, Dark Phoenix, which is about a young woman with godlike telekinetic powers who actually destroys a world. So maybe it's not that lighthearted. But taking me back to my X-Men roots, which I really enjoy. It's a very nice collection. Not only has the main Dark Phoenix story, but also has the alternate version, which would have seen Jean psychically lobotomized rather than killed. So that's kind of cool. It also has the Days of Future Past issues in here and a couple of other storylines and some sketches and cool stuff. So
that's cool.
I am
enjoying it. Definitely in an apocalyptic mood these days.
I guess so. Subconsciously, I'm drawn to that for some reason.
I think Bob's going to have to fire up the Dragon Mobile and we take another road to the apocalypse in the next couple of we'll bring Lord Blood-Rah with us this time.
I'm curious. I'm very curious. Sure.
One of our earliest episodes, The Road to the Apocalypse.
It was fun. At least I had fun. It was I recently listened to it again and I had just as much fun listening to it. Well, thank you, Walker. I want to thank my good friend. He's retired from where we work, Dennis, for loaning me Crab Monsters, Teenage Cavemen, and Candy Stripe Nurses. Sorry, I'm reading it backwards on the screen. This is a great book about Roger Corman films. I didn't get to get through all of it. Couldn't find it online. Couldn't find it in a bookstore. Just recently, I did find a copy for cover price, so I was very happy to add to my collection. But it's a great book if you have it, or if you get your hands on it. What's that, Bob?
Cover price? Really?
Cover price. These guys wanted like $120 for it.
Jesus.
And well, yeah.
I got that with the generosity of my good friend Brad Warner.
Awesome.
But I also have the Roger Corman's autobiography, How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood and Never Lost a Dime, except for on Intruder. So
that's cool. I also, another investment, Galactic
Big
Archive series of Star Wars. This is the Dejaric chess set that they played in Star Wars.
Mhm.
And I haven't played it yet, but it lights up, it makes sound. It's kind of heavy, but
So if anyone beats you at that chess game, do you have to rip their arms out?
absolutely.
Those are the rules. Those are the rules.
I'm not a 400-year-old Wookiee, but I'm a 400-pound man. So I just if I can't rip out their arms, I'll sit on them. Hey, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the finale of Star Trek Discovery. Like it or not, they have aired their last episode, and Michael Burnham. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Star Trek Discovery, I'm going to kind of ruin or put out some spoilers out there. It might ruin your watching. So I'm not a huge fan of Discovery, but just for the sake of finishing what I started, I stuck with it. We kind of talked about this earlier. I feel that Michael finally came into the comfort of being a captain, her own captain, and stopped crying. So that was good. I'm just deeply disappointed in, going after the thing that they're going after and getting it, and then, okay, not going to do anything with it. And it's like, but as I think about it, that's kind of what they did in the Next Generation. They had one episode where they found the technology where all life came from. Let's go to the next episode. So,
yeah. But then you got the feeling that the Enterprise just wasn't involved in the rest of it. Yeah, they had other things to do, whereas this was their mission.
Well, that is a fair point. This was their mission. I can't think of the doctor's name, but the old guy in the holodeck with white walls, and it turns out he's the
yeah,
I can't think of his name.
COVID?
What's that, Walker? Yes. Thank you, Lord Blood-Rah. And he's the actual time police or whatever from Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah. Daniels,
yeah. And because on his wall, as she's talking to him, he has Geordi's visor, Cisco's baseball, Kirk's condoms. No, just anyway, I don't know. I didn't really agree with that choice either. And then, they dress down, or they de-evolve Discovery or Zora so that she can go meet Calypso at some undetermined future date. That I don't know. Yeah. But look, it was the first African female captain of a starship, and I salute and respect them for that. It was a very diverse cast. Yes. And I salute them on that. Just a little bit too much kung fu and dynamite for my taste. What drove me crazy, they have this digital wall like Mandalorian, but anytime the ship gets hit, there's fire and sparks on the bridge.
Yes.
Did Irwin Allen make it?
Who designed? How is that a design? How is that built into the design that advance flames in the control room of the ship?
What kind of flammable gas is in that bridge?
What? Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I didn't watch this season, but the last time I watched it, when they were under attack, it looked like rocks were actually falling in the bridge. The debris looked like rocks.
They had the debris, yeah.
I don't know what it's made of. But then again, it looks like 90% of the interior of Discovery is turbo lift channels. So.
Well, here's the thing. They don't use turbo lifts anymore because they just transport wherever they want to go. Okay, I'll meet you on the bridge.
Tremendous amount of energy.
The one thing that I loved and have loved throughout the series was Saru. And Saru has some scenes in the finale that are just
absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, and Walker, you may watch it, so I don't want to spoil more of it than I already have. Although I doubt you will, but
maybe eventually.
He has a very good ending.
Very happy ending
in the series. Yeah.
Well, he was, I think, probably the best character. So.
Yeah.
I really liked Raynor. I liked Raynor a lot. I liked that they introduced this no nonsense, rather gruff character that I was afraid that they were going to completely soften him by the end, and they didn't. They just kind of grew to have a mutual understanding.
Yeah.
There's a scene, this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a scene where he's in command of the Discovery and he's walking around the bridge, and one of the officers says to Tilly, he hasn't sat down in the captain's seat yet. Maybe he's uncomfortable, I don't know. And at one point she leans into him and says, we're all behind you. We all believe in you. You can sit down in the captain's chair. And he basically says, I know that. I don't need this touchy-feely crap, he basically says. But thank you. And he kind of smiles like, leave me alone. I got this. And she accepts it, like, okay, very good. I liked Raynor a lot.
The great payoff to that scene, Lord Blood-Rah, is when he finally does sit down in the captain's chair, he does a little Picard maneuver.
That's right. Yes,
and then sits down. And now I do love watching the Ready Room with Will Wheaton. And there was an interview with Jonathan Frakes, who directed the episode prior to the finale. And he says that he and the actor talked about how do you take the captain's seat, because it's a big deal. Very few people, and so they had that discussion. He said, well, I get a little Picard maneuver, and he says, and I'll be damned, he did it. So
something that is, I guess it's kind of a minor point, but that drives me nuts about not only Discovery but actually Strange New Worlds 2 is they've made this whole thing about what the captain says to make the ship go, essentially. Kirk never did that.
No.
It's like set a course for blah, 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 ahead warp factor, and that's it. Picard, engage warp drive, let's go. Not every captain has to have a unique signature phrase to make the ship go. It's
become a thing needlessly. Yeah.
You notice Raynor didn't.
No, exactly.
Raynor didn't. Just
no nonsense captain. Just
that's it.
It's like they're more focused on that than thinking about this. Is this a good story? I don't know.
I will say this about the transporters now. I wish I had one, because I just going to work, and I wouldn't have to commute for an hour. Or I think I'll have a barbecue with Walker this Saturday. Walker, would you like me to bring some coleslaw? Just beam over. From Star Trek Enterprise, they would put this blue glue on their half-naked bodies, and it felt, kind of like an R-rated movie, as they would just kind of caress each other. And that was it part of the transporter, or was that when they...
Roger Corman suggested that.
Then they just blow up.
He said, what this episode needs? It needs blue jelly and you in your underwear slathering it.
That wins the episode.
That's it. We're done. Peace out. Planet 8 signing off.
But no, that is kind of ridiculous. One thing with the transporters, though, they all must have to increase the amount they work out, because you'd think the amount of weight you'd gain not having to walk anymore.
Yeah.
From deck to deck, just boom, you're there.
Yeah, there was that scene where they're all in the briefing room and all 7 of them just bugger out,
Right. Yeah.
But
so much energy use. It's like, are the engines that much more powerful now? I thought they had an issue with dilithium.
that was last season. They solved it now.
I guess.
Oh god, okay. I should
And they
just,
haven't found 0-point energy yet. It's what, the 32nd century, something like that, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. There's more Star Trek series coming out. Michelle Yeoh's going to be involved with. I think
there's a lot of stuff coming this month too. We've got the Acolyte, we've got House of the Dragon, other stuff I'm probably forgetting. So, and for me now, that's great because I can't go out and do anything now that it's going to hit like 110 this week. So, be watching a lot of TV.
Absolutely. Well, my friends, this draws another episode to a close. Those of you out there listening, watching, we thank you. We appreciate you. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Until we meet again, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission. Peace out. Live long and prosper.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.